Hello and welcome you guys. My name is Soham and I'll be your host for the 5th edition of the Great Indian Esports Raffle. Here we discuss everything Indian and everything esports. A little housekeeping before we get started. We will be trying to present ourselves in a way where we assume that the listener doesn't know anything but the basics of the Indian domestic circuit. Considering the feedback from a last podcast, we took a more analytical and thorough approach towards the scene with Nishant Cloudex Patel. That aspect of the podcast has been appreciated greatly, and we shall focus on resembling or rather reciprocating such results with this podcast. If you haven't already checked our earlier podcasts, be sure to check the first one with Rats where we talked a lot on New Cypher, the second with Sarvesh and Anand where we discussed their lives in Indian esports, the third one with Sid Joshi on the ETG story and his experience, and lastly with Nishant Patel on the troubles Indian Dota faces in the future. Our guest for this evening is Sudhen Wahengbam. I really hope I pronounced that name properly. He is a preeminent and a prodigy of a CSGO caster. He is also considered by a large cast as the best caster in our nation. We'll discuss the state of Indian CSGO, how to cast 101, community building, and his overall experience by being full-time within esports, among other things. And without further ado, I bring you Sudhen Bleh Wahengbam. Alright, what's up everybody? I'm here with Sudhen Bleh Wahengbam. Sudhen, Bleh, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Zon.
So, if you could just tell us what your current designation is?
I currently do a lot of things for So Strong,
Okay.
including I was the head of broadcasting initially when I joined the company.
I see.
Right now, yeah, I still do that, but at the same time, I have multiple responsibilities, which are too many to really get into. But let's just say I kind of like the jack of all trades when it comes to So Strong.
I mean, there's nothing new in esports if you're not juggling between a lot of things, I guess.
That is true. I mean, I think many people make the mistake that when you think of esports, they only look at what's on camera, right? They
That's
think,
true.
okay,
Yeah.
either playing or casting or analysis. They don't really think about what goes
Before
behind the
scene.
scene.
Yeah, behind the
Yeah,
scenes, exactly.
behind the scenes. Like you have the production crews, you have people who take care. It's like any company. Like you have operations,
Yeah.
you have logistics, you have so many things that you can really get into. So,
That
yeah.
with a booming industry presents itself with a lot of possibilities for responsibilities that you can take also, right? For furthering your career, as one would say.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
so what's been occupying your time lately?
Lots of things actually. We're at So Strong. We're primarily working on launching out new anti-cheat and then working on quite a number of features. So I work hand in hand with the devs,
Okay.
to help them out, to kind of like help guide them alongside a couple of other people in our company. Because if you look at So Strong, it's a small company, but we have a number of devs, and then we have a number of industrial experts, so to speak, like people who deal with, who know the scene, so to speak. So we kind of like work hand in hand to kind of guide the product, guide So Strong in what we feel would be the right direction.
The entire machine, as you're saying, and how it's working.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty interesting. So, a quick rundown for our viewer. The first half, we will be discussing various topics and questions to extract Blaze's opinion on the Indian esports community. We will then approach his exciting life and times inside Indian esports in the second half. So, beginning with the first question, we are literally just going to start off with some masala. So, the
Alright.
ETG and Eternal Esports debacle. We had Sid Joshi earlier on the podcast where he said, to summarize in one line, he who laughs last laughs the longest. You get where he's going with that, right? So,
Yeah.
what's your entire opinion on it? How it proceeded and like its positives, its negatives?
I think Joshi is the right person to talk about this because let's be honest, I've kind of not distanced myself, but I've been kind of just observing from the backlines.
Aloof, you could say.
Yeah, kind of to a certain degree, for the Indian scene for the past year or so, because I was really involved in the scene like 3 years back, right, with the Indian scene.
Yeah.
But you have people like Fett, aka Archie, who, in my opinion, I think he knows more about Indian scene than I do right now. But
Okay.
just to like give my 2 cents, it would be. It's a very muddled scenario with a lot of he said, she said. It's all hearsay. But overall, I think it comes down to the fact that many of the players, it boils down to two things, like the organization and the players. Number one, the players being majority of them, they haven't really approached this like a job. Like most of them are pretty young, or they haven't really.
A sense of professionalism is where you're
yes,
coming
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. They haven't really got the sense of professionalism. I don't want to blame them too much. It all could also be because our scene hasn't really seen any professionalism for a
It's-
long time. Like lots of people have been playing Counter-Strike or Dota or any other esports style for
and
more than a
infancy,
decade.
the scene is
Yeah.
you're coming to.
Yes, but even now, we're starting to slowly see a little bit of professionalism creeping in, but it's not
Okay.
enough. So I think that's one issue with the players. They don't know how to go about things. Secondly, would be the fact that there have been and there are orgs who I've met some of their owners, and they don't seem to have any idea about how to go about things. Like they think having a brand name, a logo, and just picking up a team, paying a basic salary, that's enough. They don't know how to monetize it, how to market their brand, how to really build it, how to build their players, the players' brands, the team brands, etc. And I think so. It kind of boils down to both the parties' fault. Sometimes the team org, the manager, or maybe the owner, they don't really know how to go about things. Just jump in thinking, oh, it's esports, okay, big money. I like video games. Let's make a team. And then you realize it's a lot of hard work. It's like running any company, right? It is
Of
not
course.
that easy.
Of course.
You got to break even, or else you're just going to be sinking all your money in. And I think it kind of boils down to these two factors. One, the org don't know how to be an org, and some of the players, they don't really know how to go about things. They don't know anything about contracts, about how to bargain for themselves, etc. So I think both parties are kind of to blame when it comes to this entire debacle.
So to boil down what you had to say, there are these two sides: the player, the manager, and then the org side, and both of them have a long way to go if we are to see India anywhere near how we see the esports scene, suppose in the Scandinavian countries or in North America. And so that being said, I would say some aspect of it also goes to a lack of information and knowledge being, what do you say, thirsted into the scene that will really help its growth. And I guess to that end, this podcast is one attempt to cover through that. And these aspects of the esports scene also lack. Now, so strong as a media company exists, but there is a dearth of talent, as we would say, in the other aspects that constitute a sustainable ecosystem for esports. So what do you think about that?
That's a multi-pronged question because, let me take an example. Like one org in a country with whom I believe are going about things the right way. Yes, they have made a lot of mistakes in the past as well, but they have learned from it by the looks of it, and they have managed to evolve. Would be Eternal Esports. Entity Esports. I always get confused. And Entity Esports, if you look at them, they have players from they have international squads. They have players from all over the world for various esports titles, and they at least seem to have an idea of how the business model is going to work out, right? They're not just like, we were an Indian org, we're only going to have Indian players. It doesn't work that way. Look at Fnatic. I don't think many people know they're a British organization. Their headquarters is based out of London, but everyone looks at Fnatic as a Swedish team, right? True. It doesn't really matter. So different companies have different ways to go about things. So if you're talking about organizations, I'd say pick up the best teams or players you can. For example, if you remember Titan Esports in CSGO, like the French players, they're a Singaporean org. Not many people know about that. They had one of the best teams in the world. They're org from Singapore. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. Their money, I think they spent too much money in buying a couple of players when it was a little too early in CSGO's life cycle. So they kind of shut down.
Into the history of it, I guess.
Yeah, so that's the thing. As an org, you got to look for what's best for your interest. Try to pick up the best team possible. Try to pick up the best selection of players, and for that, you need an experienced org owner or a good manager. Yes, someone who is aware of how things work internationally.
Realism, just being realistic, hardcore, no idealism whatsoever. Like
it's a job. It's a company. It's a company. Would you want to hire the best for your company? It's as simple as that. Secondly, I would look at if you look at a company like SoStrong, for example, we are a company who has an esports platform for CS:GO, and we as a whole, we're not going to be just content just being
Where you are.
good in India, big in India, or having just Indian users. We want to expand out, right? You got to look
Definitely.
beyond your boundaries. You can't be the king in a small pond. And same thing applies to the players, right? You can't just be content winning some local tournaments.
Basic domestic circuit wins.
Well, what's the point? Like there's going to be a limit to it. How are you going to evolve as a team or as a player unless you really apply yourself? And I think this comes down to the fact that there are no good orgs as well, and many of the players are immature. So someone's got to step up. Either the org needs to step up and treat the players like employees, saying that, hey, you're an employee for this company, you're an employee for my org, you need to perform, you'll be given so much time to perform, you'll be given the resources, but you need to perform. You got to hit certain
aims,
objectives which we're going to be giving you. Like it could be streaming certain hours every day or every week. Most of these teams have that. You got to be able to market themselves, you got to know how to behave, how to deal with media, how to behave yourself on social media, etc., and how to play, of course, very important. Their approach to the game. So it's got to go both ways. There's not like there's a lack of talent, but there's a lack of application, and there's a lack of people not understanding, how things really work. They think, what they're doing right now is correct, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And for some reason, they don't want to really
move beyond the boundaries.
They don't want to go beyond the comfort zone. They're like, nah, this will work, this is good enough. They don't want to really get out of the comfort zone and really want to apply themselves. I think that's the main issue.
And that in some sense also comes down to the greater question of what is holding back the potential of Indian esports, I guess. The comfort zone area and the lack of professionalism. But I guess we've discussed enough of that. So I mean, my next question literally was, as a caster and mainstay of the scene, what can you suggest for players and organizations? So that is pretty much covered really well at this point. So moving on to our next question. Lacking within the CSGO scene. So the last time I spoke with Nishan on the podcast, we lamented over the fact that the Dota 2 scene has seen a diminishing number of teams, and we have just had one or two major organizations dominating every single tournament. The very opposite is the case with CSGO, where earlier there were 2 to 3 dominant teams, but now we have a lot within the competition for the first 4 or the first 5 positions. So this complete reversal that we see in CSGO, what conclusions do you derive from this, and where do you see this going forward? This model in comparison to Dota?
Well, yeah, there were a lot of teams. Last year there was one team, Entity Gaming, Ace's team, Ace, Excali, all those guys, A-Star. They were pretty dominant throughout the entire year. So to me, it kind of felt like they were a team that could potentially achieve something outside of the country. But then this entire debacle happened with Entity, Eternal, and whatnot, and due to various reasons, the team kind of combusted internally. And you have all these players like A-Star is now he's joined Brutality, I think. Ace has left the country. He's playing for an Indonesian team, XCN. Excali, I'm not too sure what he's doing. So that team kind of broke up, and in their ashes, you have the current Entity squad, which is Hellranger, Sai, Marzel, which is a very stacked team. The problem with the team is, when it comes to Counter-Strike, it's about trying to learn the right way. If you try to just force things, if you try to just play YOLO and just aim and gun, sure, you might beat the Indian scene, but when it comes to international teams, you're going to really struggle. So I'm pretty close to the guys from Entity, the current Entity lineup. So I know that they're trying to approach things the right way, play very structured and whatnot. But because of that, I think they hamstring themselves. So when they face off against a team like 2EZ Eternal or the current Eternal Esports lineup, who are stacked with some very good aimers and firepower, they kind of overthink things, and they're the worst enemy. At the same time, they have been together for now quite a few number of months, so time is running out for them. But yeah, it just comes down to the fact that there are multiple teams who can operate at a similar level, even though it's different play styles. But overall, I don't think the ceiling is that high enough yet. It's not like they're all playing at a very high level. It's just that they're all playing at a decently high level.
As you said, the king in the pond scenario.
Yes, yes, it is that scenario. I still don't see them. They can right now. Like, let's be honest. Like on the bright side, I've seen some of them take down some of the tier 2 Southeast Asian teams, like some of the Thai teams, some of the
Yes.
Indonesian teams. We saw Entity Esports do that. We saw 2EZ Esports do that. But it's not convincing enough, you know. And for a couple of these teams, the salary and the resources behind them is way more, and the opportunities for them is way more than the teams they're facing off against have. Some of the Thai teams, like I mentioned earlier. So there are signs of promise, but it's not enough yet, and time is running out. Like, you know, you got to start stepping up here. You don't
Indeed.
have
Indeed.
that much of time, because as an org owner, like if I was the entity org, Eternal Esports or entity org owner or whichever org owner, I'd be like, hey, listen, dude, I've given you so much time. You got to start showing results. Getting fourth place, fifth place is not good enough anymore. You need to start winning events against good competition, because I'm giving you everything I have. I'm giving you, a training room, a boot camp house, a salary, etc., etc. So it's time to really step up. So that's the thing right now. Yes, there is a better competition. Teams can really beat each other. It's looking exciting for the domestic circuit, but you take that out of the domestic.
We need a higher point of view, a bird's eye, from where we
You
can
need to
see
start
where
looking
the Indian
out.
teams really lie in terms of their international counterparts.
Yes, and that's I'm not talking about like the best of the best. I'm not talking about the EU teams. I'm not talking about the Brazilians. I'm not talking about the North Americans. I'm talking about just your neighbors.
Asian,
Uh,
the Chinese
Asians
and the
who-
Southeast Asians.
Not even the Chinese, not even Tailu, not even Flash. I'm talking about just the SCA guys.
Okay.
You should be able to, like, you've reached a stage where you need to start dominating them, like the teams from Thailand, the teams from Indonesia, and all these guys. You need to start being called a top 2, a top 3 team in Southeast Asia. Only then can you be like, all right, they can maybe present a challenge. Until that happens, sorry to say, I still don't see them really achieving much.
So, with the time running out, with objectives not being met, with the two-pronged side of the players with the dearth of professionalism and the organizations being a little too new to the scene, all this being said, where do you see the future of CSGO, in Indian CSGO lying in? Like, what will be the change from 2019, 2020? What change do you wish to see, and what do you think will happen? Some predictions.
It's hard to predict. So I personally think, again, this is all hypothesis, but
Yeah,
there
definitely.
is
Go ahead.
there is a lot of money being put into esports in India
Yes,
right now. Many
this
people
is the
coming in.
main aspect actually, given the king in the point scenario and the excess money coming in, which will, in my opinion, I guess, see laymancy. I mean, I'm not sure whether that is a word. The drive to strive higher in terms of international recognition as being diminished with terms of the money being thrown into the Indian scene. How do you, with all this mixing into the cauldron, where do you see it coming out with?
It can still work out. Now, whether it'll work out in a good way or a bad way, that remains to be seen. So just to flesh it out, like, okay, we have UCypher, we have ESL in the Premiership, we have Cobex, we have Gods of Gaming. Like, there's so many events. There's like so many events with some pretty big prize pool. There's the LXG event which is announced.
Definitely.
So just taking ESL in the Premiership and the LXG event, that's 2 crores of cash prize up for grabs for the year. That's quite a lot of money, right? And then we have the ESL India has been televised, and we have UCypher. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of how some organizations have gone about the way they're broadcasting, or the way they're doing it. But then again, it's their prerogative, it's their money, it's the way they want to do it. But I look at it this way.
Just to make the point, you're saying a lack of production level is being exhibited.
It's not a production level. It's about, I'm sure they can produce well, but if you don't have a direction of how you want to do it, like, you can have the best camera guy, the best production crew, but if your script is crap, the movie's still
the
going to
creative
right.
aspect of your live stream is where you're coming to.
Kind of, to a certain degree, yes.
Okay,
Because let's put it this way, right? They want to put esports on television, and it makes sense because, let's be honest, esports is easy to
grasp.
it's cheap content. It's not easy to grasp, but it's cheap content. The amount of money you're going to be putting in to do a Counter-Strike tournament on online
I
CS
see.
Cup or this
Yeah,
one,
yeah, yeah,
it's
that
much
way.
it's much lesser, right? Yeah,
Yes.
you're not
Yes,
investing
yes.
that much of money compared to, let's say, an IPL, or let's say compared to a Pro Kabaddi League, where you need people to come on, you need an arena, studio, a big arena, and all that stuff. So for a television company, I think it will make sense for them. They're like, hey, this is cheap content and we can push it out and it's interesting. And compared to all other esports titles, I personally believe, apart from fighting games, but fighting games are not that big enough, but apart from fighting games, CS is the easiest to get into, at least
Definitely.
for a complete beginner, right?
An intuitive basis is also more than enough to just understand the basics of the game.
Absolutely. So it is the the gateway drug, so to speak, for esports. So obviously looking at the way the response has been, I wouldn't be surprised if if organizations don't continue to have esports in CSGO tournaments in the country, and more money is going to come in, because there'll still be teams playing for it. So the scene can grow. Don't get me wrong, the scene can grow. There can be a lot of teams coming out. There could be a proper full-fledged league with the East India Premiership, like I mentioned. You have so many things where teams will be playing against each other. There'll be LAN tournaments, lots of money, people making a lot of money. However, does that increase the level of the game? Does that increase the level of these teams?
Yes,
that I don't know. That I doubt.
Yeah, that's the aspect I guess we should be covering on. And in
Yeah.
that,
So
you expressed
the
doubt.
entire thing.
So
Is there-
you
that-
wouldn't count
that
yourself
entire
as an
thing-
optimist?
I'm a realist. I'm not a cynic nor an optimist. I'm a realist. And talking about an analogy of the king in a small pond, a frog in a pond, it might become the case that the pond might be gold infused water, might be a very rich pond, might have a lot of money in it, but it's still a pond.
Yes.
And that is what worries me a little.
I guess that concludes the entire message that we had to say pretty efficiently. And I guess that's it from talking about CSGO. So moving a little on to streaming. So I think every single viewer of us have noticed a Twitch India versus YouTube gaming debacle currently going on, manifesting itself on social media. On at a practical level, there are many differences attached to it. Then there are even events being taken across India. Where do you see the right direction within all of this? And just to shed some light on what you think is and what you think should be. Take it away.
YouTube versus Twitch, yeah, that's a messy thing. But
Yeah,
okay,
that it is.
I look at it this way. It just comes down to which is a better platform for your audience. Number one, number two, which is more rewarding. As as a platform for streaming for yourself. So let me break that down. In India, if you're just going to be streaming for India, the first thing is if the people watching are only Indians, the primary thing is they should be able to watch it. Now, Twitch,
True.
Twitch being the problem is, look, I have a bloody good internet connection, and I sometimes stream on Twitch, like I'll be casting on Twitch, but hey, guess what? Like it lags even for me. And that's because the infrastructure for Indian streamers for Twitch is highly unoptimized, and whoever is in charge of that for Twitch hasn't really bothered with it. They don't really want to do anything about it, which is a major problem. So
and just to make that
you
point
can't-
further, it is a case faced with every Indian. It's not like just you, just to add on.
Yeah, it is true. Like if you can't stream on the platform, what the hell can you do, right?
Exactly.
So Twitch needs to fix the servers or put up some new servers in India, localized servers that people can stream and watch it. So that's step number one. If they do that, Twitch, I feel, is a better platform overall for a streamer, because it is more rewarding. It's got a subscription system, which is much better than what YouTube has. It's an overall better system for you to grow as a streamer. It's a more rewarding platform. And if I was a streamer, if someone came up to me and said, hey, where should I stream on Twitch or YouTube? And if this issue wasn't there with the servers and people not being able to watch your streams, I would definitely say, hey, you know what? Just stream on Twitch. You have a better potential of growing on Twitch than on YouTube, because YouTube has always been lagging behind. And to be blunt, I don't think YouTube have really
Put any
since
efforts.
put real concentrated effort into
True.
streaming. So I don't think it's
Exactly.
as rewarding, right? As you, it is much more. It is rewarding as a platform, but it's not rewarding for Indian streamers. So it comes down to it. What is your target audience? Are you just going to be constantly streaming in Hindi? Are you kind of a local streamer? Then you know what? Even though Twitch might be better on paper, there's no point. Stick to YouTube. If you are looking to stream to an international audience, and reach out to not just Indians but people outside there, then I would ideally say Twitch it would be the overall better platform, because if you stream from India, then anyone else from from the US, from Europe, or whatever can watch. Because when I have casted games, I've casted both on YouTube and on Twitch. And YouTube, it'll just be primarily the Indians coming in, and very, it's a lesser number of people coming in from outside the country. But for international games, I like it has to be Twitch. I've casted on Twitch, and I've got a lot of viewers coming in, right? So it comes down to what you want. They're obviously, I'm a little privy to the entire the cat and dog fight that's going on, with Twitch and YouTube. But at least, but that's because there are some people who are invested in Twitch for whatever reasons. Maybe they're employees, maybe they're paid by Twitch, whatever, and they want more people to get on Twitch. While some people are like, hey, you know what, you guys aren't being honest. Because let's be honest, you really can't stream from Twitch. You're just trying to promote something because you have a vested interest, and it is ideally not better for an Indian streamer. So I think
so to put it bluntly, what you're doing here is taking some kind of a pot shots at evangelists.
Yeah, kinda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't call a spade a spade. There are some evangelists on both sides. I'm not saying that even some of the YouTube guys are not to blame. Some guys are like, Twitch is complete shit. YouTube is way better. I'm like, I disagree there. YouTube is better for Indians to watch it and stream on, but I think Twitch provides much more as a streaming platform. On the flip side, Twitch is horrible for India when it comes to just watching the basic stream. Yeah, while YouTube has all the servers and everything set up properly, so it's easy. So both good and bad, but I think because of the evangelists on both sides, it's just looking really, really
messy,
ugly.
Okay.
Yeah, messy and ugly. So
I would like to appreciate that, given that is, I think, the most nuanced argument I have heard till now regarding this entire debate. So thank you for that. And that being said, the last question before we move to the second half. When discussing with Nishant on tournaments, he said Dota tournaments will be focused in a way where SEA tournaments will be moved to India, within which Indian teams will participate. Now, with CSGO, is there some kind of a shift from Indian teams going to SEA tournaments and then establishing themselves there? Or should the focus be with SEA teams coming to big Indian tournaments? I hope I could get the message across.
True. Look, it comes down to both ways can work. Now, if the Indian tournaments open themselves up and the prize money is good enough, and if they open themselves up to international teams participating, then the overall the level, the quality of the tournament becomes better, right? So more people are going to notice it. Let's say you get a Tai Lu coming in. Let's say you have a Rekka, or some of these top ACA or Asian teams coming in, and HLTV.org, all these media sites are coming like, hey, there's a pretty big tournament happening. It's in India. You have all these top Asian teams coming in, maybe a couple of EU teams coming in as well. So there's more attention paid to it. And if the Indian teams play in these tournaments and they do a good job, and by the way, they're playing in their hometown. They're not traveling outside. It's easy for them.
That's the main point.
And if they can do well there, then boom, it works out. It works out. Then you've proven yourself that hey, you can win or you can do good against really good opposition, and it works that way. On the flip side, if Indian tournament organizers are again, there's so many factors like sponsors.
Definitely.
Some sponsors will be like, hey, we just want
bigger reductions too. That's not an issue.
Okay, so that's the thing with sponsors. I know for a fact some sponsors are like, we don't want international guys. We just want to target the Indian market or the Indian audience. We want to just grow the Indian scene, completely isolated from everyone else. And I don't want to blame the tournament organizers, but at the end of the day, the money is coming in from the sponsors. You have to listen to them at certain points, right? So that happens. On the other hand, Indian players trying to participate in SCA tournaments, sure, that can happen. Unfortunately, the SCA region, there's a huge lack of tournaments, and it's always been the case because SCA is primarily focused on Dota 2. Dota 2 is where it's much, much bigger. The only other region in Asia where CSGO has a good tournament scene is China. It's ironic, but it's China and India who have healthy tournaments happening all the time. China, obviously, much, much bigger than India. But if you look at, apart from China, which other countries do it, then the logical answer is India. But the problem with Indian tournaments are it is extremely xenophobic. I'd say not many people come, or not many people are aware of it, or it's not even advertised that, hey, you know what, you guys can play. There can be Asian qualifiers. No, it's only India, India, which is why most of these guys don't know that there are tournaments that they can play in. And it would be really cool if they came. I think it would increase the overall quality of the tournaments much more. The competition level would be much greater, and your tournament actually, its quality improves. Sponsors going to be more, will notice it more. And hey, guess what? It might become a premier tournament internationally just based on the teams who take part. But again, that ball is solely in the court of the TOs, so there's nothing we can do about it.
Okay. And just in final thoughts, do you think there is the possibility in 2 years for a tournament where EU teams come and participate in India? Can you be that optimistic about the Indian scene?
It can happen. It can happen, but there are a lot of factors. Firstly,
would you say factors or would you say obstacles?
I wouldn't say obstacles. I think they can all be taken care of. Yeah, dealt with, and they're not insurmountable. But it does. Okay, so first things first. You got to choose the right location, etc., etc. You got to have a good enough prize pool. And bear in mind, the number of tournaments happening right now, the tier 1 tournaments happening right now around the world are like crazy. Now teams are starting to pick and choose which tournament they attend, and that just shows, goes to show that you have competition as well. If you're going to host a tournament in international tournament, you have competition. You got to match to those standards. Secondly would be the production quality, the level. I don't think the Eastern India guys are the best we have right now from a pure production standpoint, but it is still far away from the level that is expected from an international tournament, from tournaments that the teams, the EU teams or the international teams are used to. You get me, right? So maybe, I don't know, could be outsourcing the production, the tournament handling to a certain experienced crew, or working with them together. That can do good work, marketing it the right way, having the right prize pool, having the right spokespeople attached to it. I think that can work out. I think it is a viable strategy.
You see a possibility minus Indian talents. Is that where you're going about with?
No, it can be with Indian talents, but I do believe they need a guiding force. It's not about...
Yeah, a guiding force is where we can put it. Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and that's it for the first half. So now regarding the second half, where we talk about your life and times within esports. So first question, the generic one. How did gaming begin for you?
Oh wow, okay. Gaming began a long time ago in a far away place where my second cousin, he was like 16, 17. I was just like 6 or 7, and he had an Atari system, ancient Atari system. I forgot the name of it. It's one of those cartridges where it had switches on it, so you had to change games based on the switches. It's ancient. So that was when I had my first experience with
video games.
Yeah, and I kind of fell in love. Following that, I convinced my parents I had to get good grades, but they bought me a couple of... I forgot the names of those systems, but 16-bit games, 30-bit games, the old school Ninja Gaidens.
Going antique with you.
Yeah, basically. And we went to a lot of these old school, Contra. And I think the competitive edge for me came about when we had...
Smash Bros?
No. It was Contra, funnily enough.
Okay.
My personal record is finishing that entire game dying just once. No one believes me, but I managed to do that. And I think that kind of opened my eyes to the fact. It was a single player game, yes, but it challenged me, and I really enjoyed it. I was never into sports. Yes, I was never into sports that much. Yeah, sure, used to. I mean, if you're an Indian, you have to watch cricket. I did watch cricket. I did watch football, but I never really followed sports much. And even played sports that much. But from a competitive standpoint, I used to want to do speed running, not like the level of speed running people do internationally. That's insane. But we used to have Mario speed runs when I was a kid and whatnot. And my first computer game was when I played Prince of Persia, the first one, and so on and so forth. Gaming started very early. Esports started much later.
Okay, so and the esports part, I guess let's not start with where esports started. Where did esports as a profession begin to emerge in your life?
Esports as a profession. To be honest, it never really clicked with me
Okay.
that esports
It
would
came something
be.
gradually, you can say.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. I never really thought about getting into
Okay.
esports.
So you just
I
flowed
mean,
with it then. I guess.
I gave it a shot because I liked it, and I didn't look for money at it. Like to give an example, I've been playing CS for since 2002, I think, thereabouts.
Okay. So
It's
that's
been
16
for
years.
forever. Yeah, 16, almost 16 years of playing various versions of this game, and I've watched esports tournament from starting 2004. So I've been following the Counter Strike esports scene for over a decade, but it was only, but I never considered myself as a player, as a professional player. I only looked at trying to just play for fun, play it a little seriously, of course, but always for fun, never like to make money or anything out of it. And that is until 2014, I think. Yeah, 2013, late 2013, early 2014. I was at a tournament in Bangalore. It was a LAN tournament. I knew a couple of guys. They're like, "Hey, man, want to play a tournament?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So sitting there waiting, and I heard one guy casting the CSGO side of things, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I think I can do a better job than him. And I just started casting just for the heck of it. Just I got a new internet connection. I was working full time, job which has nothing to do with video games or esports. I was working 9 to 5. Come back from home and I'd see any tournaments. And early Counter Strike, early CS:GO, there used to be quite a few tournaments which had open Go TV on HLTV, so anyone could pick them up and cast. So I just pick it up. I create a Facebook page. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be casting this game today. I'm going to be casting 2 or 3 maps today, and I just started casting. And yeah, over time, it came to a point where some people approached me. They're like, hey, we wanted to cast in a tournament. We'll pay you money. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can make money from this. And it kind of slowly went from there. I never really approached it saying I want to be an esports broadcaster. I want to be, make money doing this. Never started that.
I just like to say that I love these stories because this is what I've seen to be the emergence story for almost everyone who I've met who has gone to become successful within esports. Like it is something that just came out of a pure drive, a passion, which then catapulted them into a position where they could monetize their talent. It never began from someone directly approaching it with the intention of monetizing whatever the hell they're doing. And this, I think, is a fine point that not many people get it, and not many people can get it also now, given that the boom that esports experienced for talent is lessened quite widely now. I guess you would agree with that.
Yeah, and also just to add to that, I think many people make the mistake. They get into it for the glamour of the thing, but not many people. Many people approach me. I've casted a few. I've been very lucky and fortunate to have casted a few international tournaments outside as well. And they're like, "Yeah, man, you're very lucky."
I believe it was ESL Taipei.
Yeah, I went to IEM Taipei, then
IEM,
Starlight Invitational. Yeah, it was by ESL. Then went to IEM Shanghai Invitational, then the Asia Minors.
So that's
then,
quite the achievements.
Yeah, some 4 or 5 some pretty decently big events outside the country. So I'm pretty. I've been a little lucky, but many people tend to forget that. I did cast for more than over a year without seeing a single dollar or a rupee.
As it is said, success is where preparation meets luck.
Yes, and even if you're not looking to prepare, you keep doing it over and over again while trying to improve continuously, you get better. And that's when you feel confident when you charge and, hey, you know what, I'm going to be casting for so much of money, and you feel confident in yourself. And even if the organizer's like, that's too much money, you know that you're worth it. You know that, hey, I can do this, right? And I think there's many things that many people forget. They cast a few games and they're like, you know what, a
sense of entitlement, you're saying.
Yeah, I've seen that amongst a lot of people, or they're just happy just casting the a local tournament or the Indian scene or whatnot, which sure you can be happy with that, but it's really, really hard to grow as a professional, or you just remain stuck in a stagnant pond. Again, the pond analogy.
We come to advice later, I guess. Another question that is, what is it in the minds and the emotions of people who make the plunge into esports with no strings attached? So, are you currently full-time esports?
Yes, I have been.
How long has that been the case?
It's about 3.5 years now.
Oh my, that is more than I expected. So, how has that been like? Like
It's been
jumping.
good. It's been the greatest phase of my life, to be honest.
Okay,
To be able to be
that's nice
part of
to
an
you.
industry. Yeah, I mean, it's an industry I love. I've always loved it, and then I can do it 100% of my time. I think that's I've been very lucky. I've been very fortunate, but also not to blow my own horn, but also came about because I
Go
was
ahead.
willing to take the step that, hey, you know what? Let's give this a shot. But then again, it was a shot which it was a step I took while still being safe. Like, I was working in a company full time. Then I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be leaving, on a sabbatical for like 4 months, and I just gave myself 3 or 4 months. And if this doesn't click by then just go back to the company or just continue with the normal job. It wasn't like I was putting in all my eggs in one basket. I was still, I have a degree in engineering. I was like, I can probably try something else. But hey, you know what? Let's give it a shot. And luckily for me, before my savings ran out, I did manage to get
Strike
a
gold.
role in a company. I got a strike goal, and yeah, like move on from that to another company until I wound up in So Strong. And yeah, things have been pretty. Yeah, there's been ups and downs because it is still a growing industry. It is still a fledgling industry. It is still
Definitely.
hard. It is still hard to.
Everything is
go
not
from-
concreted yet, you would say.
Yes, and I know for a fact many of the international, not just casters, but people who have worked in esports. They worked in esports part time for a long time until they were confident enough that they had found an opportunity where they could really
full-time.
make this a full time thing. I think many people in this country lack that concept that, hey, you know what, you just can't jump in. You need to prove yourself. You need to find the right company. You need to find the right people to work with. You just can't go in 100% with barely any experience, saying and saying, hey, I deserve to be in esports. I want industry to work. Sometimes you got to find your own space. You got to create your own role, and that only comes about if you are willing to apply yourself and
Make the
also think.
sacrifices necessary.
Yes, sacrifices will be there. The guys who made it big in esports have sacrificed so much, so much. I'm not even talking about myself. I'm talking about some of the bigger guys. They have sacrificed so much to get to where they are, and also by being smart. You just can't expect things to be handed to you in a nice, wrapped up basket. You got to be
Yes.
smart. You got to look for the opportunities. You got to look for different opportunities which you can pick up on. So it is it's a multifaceted thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Would you say 3.5 years in, your career is still
Yeah.
on a shaky ground?
I wouldn't say so because
If you had to
personally
give it on
speaking-
a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being the most shaky, 1 being perfectly safe, where would you put yourself?
I would say around one being perfect. So I'd say I put myself around three or four.
Okay.
Because
That's sweet.
nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed in life. But at the same time, I personally feel that having been in this industry for, like I said, 3.5 years, and having known this industry, I mean, having been observing this industry for over a decade, that I think I have, and along with my other skill sets, not just casting, but my work in some production, in in business and everything, that I do have. I feel again that I have the chops to make things so somehow carve my own niche out or carve my own rollout in an esports company.
Which is very
may not be in this
important.
country. Yeah, may not be in this country, maybe outside. And let's be honest, like many of the people in esports, they have worn many caps, worn many hats. The head of EU for Twitch, I forgot exact role, like Tosspot, was a very famous Counter-Strike 1.6 caster. Like Call of Duty, he was a very famous caster, right? The head of talent in ESL is Joe Miller, like legendary caster.
Okay.
So on and so forth. Many people move on from their roles because they manage to adapt. They build up experience. They adapt and move on to bigger or better things in the same industry. So I do believe that, I don't think that just casting or one or two aspects of esports is the be all end all for me in the
So,
industry.
in final advice, what you have to say is drop your sense of entitlement and improvise, adapt, and overcome, I guess. Yeah?
To put it very bluntly, get good.
Get good. All right.
Get good. People will notice you.
Get good, people will notice you. That's...
Yeah.
And I guess that's it from our side. And so, we at ASidCast, thank you for your precious time, Bleh. And everyone at ASidCast wishes nothing but the best for your future career and the progress of So Strong. We look forward to better times within the esports circuit. And that's it. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. I think it was I think it's one of the better podcasts I've done. Nice
Okay.
questions overall.
It's my
So,
pleasure.
thank you. Thank you for having me, and yeah, good luck for everything at ASidCast.
Yes, and before I leave, like, share, subscribe, comment, guys. That's what keeps us. And that's it from the 5th episode of the Great Indian Esports Raffle. Be sure to tune in for the next time, and we will see you there. Bye bye.